Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Cerebral Cricketer podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest on the show. Michael Levitt is a South African born right-handed top-order batsman and right-arm medium seamer. He came through Western Province age groups and captained at school level at SACS. He holds Dutch and British passports alongside South Africa passport. Moved into Dutch club with Voorburg CC into 2023 with a stated ambition to break into the Netherlands national team. So thank you for coming on the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
So I know you have a very interesting background. So you grew up in Cape Town and then chose the Dutch pathway. What was the decision when it comes to growing up? You moved from Western Province to Voorburg Cricket Club and then the Netherlands squad. So what made you make that move? And what were your motivations for that? And yeah, like what were the experiences along the way?
Yeah, so this is actually quite an interesting story. But obviously, growing up, I've always had a dream of playing professional international cricket. And yeah, straight after school, well, yeah, during school, I was playing Western Province and went through the age groups there. And straight after school, I actually headed straight to England. I think it was 3 weeks after my final exam at school. I went over to England, did your typical gap year student where worked as a PE teacher, played a bit of club cricket on the side, and my goal then was actually to try break into one of the counties using my British passport. And then yeah, played club cricket there for a club called Stanmore Cricket Club in the Middlesex Premier League. Did reasonably well, and then unfortunately didn't get an opportunity to play in one of the counties. And then it just happened to be one random Tuesday morning I was getting ready for work at the school, and I got a message from Ryan Cook, one of the Dutch head coach, and he had heard I had a Dutch passport. And yeah, basically from there, got in contact with him. He put me in touch with the former chairman at VCC, Quibus Nel. And when I actually came back to South Africa, I met up with Quibus Nel, who's also from the Western Cape, and sort of he explained to me the pathways of VCC and sort of what's happening with Dutch cricket going forward. And basically went back to England, handed in my 1 month's notice at the school I was working at, and then moved over to Holland in March 2023. And to be fair, haven't looked back.
That's amazing. So, have you always been a top order batsman throughout that journey?
Yes, yes, yeah.
And you have another brother as well. So, what was it like growing up playing cricket? Was one of you guys like more of the bowler and one of you the batsman, and was it very competitive in the backyard?
Cheap as well. I can tell you numerous stories of us getting into a bit of arguments, and that's where we get all our sledging from, practicing on each other. But yeah, no, my younger brother Ben, he was a very good cricketer at school. But I always explain it as if I got the sporting, he got the brains sort of thing. So he was always the brains of the group, but also, as I said, very good cricketer. And yeah, he played. I was lucky enough to play with him when he was in grade 10. He played up in our cricket first team at school. So it was lovely to share those sort of memories and share the field with him. But now he's gone on a path of studies. He's studying at a university called Stellenbosch University here in Cape Town and doing really well. I unfortunately can't see him going back to cricket, but whenever I bump into someone from the past or from someone that I played cricket with at school, they always ask how's Ben doing because yeah, I reckon to be honest, he was probably perceived as probably a better cricketer than me at school. But he was more of a we call him the Marnus Labuschagne of the group. He was a number three batter that bowled leg spin and was very successful with that.
It's amazing. So, how when it comes to your batting specifically, growing up, did you have coaching or did you get tips from your brother? How was that journey when it comes to growing as a batsman from a young age?
Fortunately, when I was younger, I had a lot of coaches and a lot of really good mentors with me that taught me really good fundamentals and sort of the really good basics of batting that I could build on going into international cricket. But yeah, I'd say a lot of the mental part of things was done with my brother in the backyard because we were put some put through some very good sort of tough situations in the backyard going hard at each other. So yeah, I'd say yeah, it's probably a combination of both. Going through some really well, working with some very good coaches when I was younger, forming the basics, and then yeah, having some fun in the backyard with my brother.
Who was the most impactful coach, and what were the main tips that you learned from them that really shaped you as a batsman?
It's very tough to actually for me nominate one coach to be one of the main coaches, but yeah, I'd say when I was young, sort of learning the basics, I worked with a guy called Wayne Hendricks, who actually has his own academy here in Cape Town, the All Rounder Cricket Academy. Um, and yeah, worked on with his academy, and also then worked with a guy called Russell Sissing, who yeah helped me tremendously when I was younger, just form the basic art of batting, which allowed me to sort of develop from there.
And when it comes to your experience in England compared to your time playing club cricket in Netherlands, how was it when it comes to adjusting to the conditions? So obviously in England, it's known as more swing conditions. Netherlands, I'm not too familiar with, but I think there is a variety depending on where you play in around Netherlands as well. So, did you feel like you had to make a lot of adjustments when you decide to play Netherlands as opposed to what you're used to perhaps in England, and obviously in comparison to in South Africa as well? As we know, there is a bit of variety, but it is also more so known as quick, more suited for pace bowlers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously growing up in South Africa, I mean the two sort of climates are very, very different in Netherlands and England compared to South Africa. So I mean, yeah, growing up in South Africa, you were prone to facing really, really good quick bowlers and really good spin bowlers actually, because in the conditions that we were playing in, they were so conducive to pace bowling, is what you said. The spinners had to be really, really good. So that helped me a lot. And then moving over to England and the Netherlands, as I said, the climates are actually really similar. So the wickets you can sort of prepare are well, pretty much the same. What really forced me to adjust is actually we played with a different type of ball. Where in England you played more with the Duke's ball, where it stayed a bit more consistent. The ball was a little bit harder. It swung around for a little bit longer. But then when we played over in Netherlands, the ball got soft very, very quickly, and then it just played differently compared to England. So yeah, having to adjust in that regard was a big one. And yeah, I mean, we're still working on it now, but yeah, it was that was the main sort of adjustment that I had to think about.
So in that sense, would you say it is harder as a bowler in Netherlands because it gets softer quicker?
Yeah, I just don't think you get a lot more out of the ball. Um, early on it will swing, and then once the swing sort of stops, it just becomes a sort of a soft tennis ball, unfortunately. So yeah, it can get really tough to score and really tough to take wickets. So yeah, you'd only really take wickets, I feel, from if a batter's trying to hit you for six, and then since the ball's soft, you won't really get a lot of reward out of it.
And in comparison to England, I mean, it's known and people talk about how it is more difficult as a batsman. So, what was your experience like specifically, playing the juice ball, and what sort of adjustments did you have to make as a batsman to counter, the bowl friendly conditions?
Yeah, I think early season was definitely a sort of a big adjustment for me. Coming from Cape Town, where the weather was quite hot and sort of quick and flat, into a juicy preseason in England was quite tough, where the wickets were doing a lot. And that really taught me just to be as simple as I could with my sort of game plan and really compact. Um, yeah, I always saw myself as a batter that had quite a few shots in his locker, but that for me was pretty detrimental, especially when the juice ball was swinging a lot, so the wicket was doing a lot. And yeah, once I simplified my game plan, only in Red Bull cricket had maybe two or three scoring shots and kept it that simple. It was easier for me to execute that game plan and get my consistency up. And yeah, that's the main thing that taught me playing a juicier wicket like that.
So you talked about simplifying your game plan. So how would that look like from a mental side perspective and also a technical side? Like what specific aspects did you actually simplify?
I think it just yeah, I didn't think a lot at the crease, to be honest. I mean, I know that sounds bad, but I'm a guy that can overthink. And for me, just keeping it as simple and clear as possible, literally that's what allowed me to sort of execute. When I'm seeing the ball and thinking of, okay, I can hit this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot. But now I'm seeing the ball and I know this is the shots that I'm playing. This is the ball that's sort of appropriate for that shot. That's what helped me really just keep it clear and simple. So on the mental side of things was just keeping it clear. Like I didn't want to overcomplicate anything, and I didn't want to have sort of too many shots for a certain delivery. I just wanted to be as clear as possible and simple as possible, and yeah, that's it.
So, focusing on that point, when you're at the crease, what's your mantra, quote unquote, in between deliveries and when the bowler is running in? How closely are you watching it onto your bat? Like, what's the process from, I guess, before the bowler starts bowling till the ball reaches your bat?
Mm. Yeah, no, look, it has changed now because as in England, we played a lot more red ball cricket, where obviously the ball does a lot more, but now I'm obviously playing a lot more white ball cricket. And sort of now playing white ball cricket, it's again just keep it very, very simple. I sometimes joke with the guys, and I have this mantra called Stan and Slan, which is a direct translation to just stand and hit. But that for me means like just strong positions, hit the ball hard. And if I'm trying to hit the ball hard, I'm generally getting myself into very, very good positions. Instead of if I'm trying to nudge the ball, I get very stabby and very sort of, yeah, in weaker positions than if I'm trying to hit the ball really hard and aggressively.
I think that kind of reminds me of some interviews I've listened to with like the England players when they're talking about baseball and being positive. Like I think Roy Key, I think that's his name. He was on one of the podcast and he was talking about like it's not like everyone's talking about like the end result and wanting to do well, but then if you're as positive as you can be. And aggressive as you can be, then you're more likely, even when the situation's like day five, you need to bat out I don't know, 40 overs rather than kind of being defensive and nudging and prodding, being as aggressive in a positive way as well, and not thinking too much can actually be the best way to get past those situations as well. So, was there any sort of player that inspired? Because obviously, it seems like you said you had changes along the way. Were there any players that inspired you to make those changes, or anything? As watching international cricket in this current day and age, that inspired you to make those changes.
Yeah, no, obviously the players around me really, really supported me and backed me in that sort of regard in the way I want to play, and that sort of made me feel sort of free. And that's when I'm also at my best, free and clear. Guys like Max O'Dowd, who I opened with, he was such a good guy to talk to, and just so sort of supportive in sort of what I wanted to do in my game plan. My captain Scott Edwards, also just before every game, I was like, mate, go out, express yourself, be you. And that just sort of puts a smile on my face and sort of makes me want to be me. And then a guy who I would always watch and sort of admire, who I think does it quite well, consistently, is a guy, Mitchell Marsh. I've always liked watching him bat and sort of like revolving my sort of aggression or destructiveness at the top of the order around the way he does it.
Do you do anything else outside of during the actual game? Like for example, it could be visualization off the field, or it could be like meditations or anything like that, in order to facilitate what you described when it comes to keeping it simple, being in the moment, freeing yourself, enjoying yourself. Is there any other things that you do that facilitates your mental game in order to produce those kind of that kind of mindset?
Yeah, I'm a guy that really likes talking about it. If once I talk about it, that's how I start learning. Or yeah, start communicating about it. So we have a guy actually working with us now, Tom Dawson Squibb, who's a performance sort of mental coach. And chatting to a guy like that has been really, really good in sort of like figuring out your own game. Like he'll put you into corners and ask you some really, really tough questions, some questions that you can't really hide from. And sort of that for me has really helped me. I mean, going through so much complicatedness to find simplicity. So that's the big thing I've learned there is I've got to go through some stuff that I don't really know of to get to simple. And yeah, chatting with him, chatting with our head coaches and all our assistant coaches has been very, very good. So for me, yeah, communicating about the game, outside of the game or communicating about what I want to do outside of the game has helped me a lot.
What's interesting is shout out to Scott Edwards. He's from my neck of the woods, from Melbourne originally. So I'm based in Melbourne. He said something really interesting. He said you mentioned that he's told you to express yourself, free yourself, as well. Is that kind of what the motto is when it comes to the Netherlands team? I assume it's just especially for T20s, where he encourages everyone to be able to go out there and play their games. Is that the motto essentially for the team?
Yeah, no, he's really really good in that regard. So I mean, we've all been told we've been chosen for a reason, and we've been chosen for being ourselves, and that's what's got us there. So there's no reason to go and play a different way when you've got there, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, just do what you've done to get there, and keep it going, sort of thing. It's just it helps me make me feel a lot more free.
And what innings do you feel that, I guess, when it comes to when you were 18 years younger, was there any standout innings that you played that allowed you to build that confidence to make you think that, okay, yes, I can make it to the big leagues and play against quality bowlers?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have quite a few sort of nice innings growing up at school and in the provincial leagues and all that. But it's funny enough, it's not really the high scores that sort of got me, or that made me feel that way. It was more those nitty gritty innings where I wasn't really feeling my best, but still got through to sort of got a nitty gritty 30 not out to get the team over the line, sort of thing. So yeah, there was a distinct club game. I think I was about I think I was grade 10, and I was playing in and out of club cricket because I was still playing school cricket. So I was playing club cricket because there wasn't a school game on. And we played at some really, really sort of run down ground, and it was really tough wickets. And we were chasing a low total, and we were facing some pretty good bowlers. And I remember thinking to myself, flip, what's going to happen here? I don't know what's going to happen. I'm still 16-year-old facing some really good club bowlers. And yeah, I remember sort of just think saying what I said before is keeping it simple, playing a few shots, being really clear in my game plan, and sort of I remember walking off the field, I think 42 not out. Um, and I sort of thought to myself, flip, if I can keep doing this, then getting through those sort of hard, gritty times, that'll help me in the long stead.
Yeah, it's very difficult when it comes to those situations you mentioned. A lot of players, they walk out, they don't feel good. The conditions don't suit them. Must probably is overcast as a batsman, makes you nervous facing a top bowler, and all those things can, make you feel like not in the best frame of mind in order to do well. I feel sluggish as well. So there's a lot of things that can really affect a batsman. So in that situation, you mentioned, keeping it simple and trying to persevere in those situations. Are there any other advice you'd give to anyone who's, as a batsman, experiencing that kind of day, and any advice that allow them to or help them to push through those situations?
Yeah, so that's a good question because I just try, as I said, keep it simple, but you just got to like have that sort of I don't want to like that FU attitude, that like really like I'm here to play sort of thing. And I don't care how pretty it's going to look, how ugly it's going to look. You're not going to get me out, and I'm going to play my best forward defense of my life, my best cover drive of my life, right here, this ball, if it presents itself, sort of thing. It's like it's just really getting competitive, and yeah, just getting down and dirty. We call it like we call it I can't sorry, I can't say the word, but it's like getting into the scrap, getting very, very scrappy, and just yeah, being gritty.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important that all cricketers instill that in them, because that will help facilitate the best results. Like wanting it really badly, getting into the thick of the competition, and wanting to, like. I think it's a good way to look at a player when it's like, okay, after if they get out, they can look back and be like, I really put my best foot forward, as opposed to just being succumbed to the situation. So I think those aspects are really really important. So when it comes to, I wanted to ask about your time at VCC. Um, there was a grand final that you played, and you scored 102 of 119 deliveries, and you'd beaten HCC by 140 runs. So, how did you? What was that situation like when you came into that innings, and what did you feel you did right that day in order to score that century?
Yeah, I mean, during that time, I remember vividly that was the sort of time of the selection of the 2023 50 over team for the World Cup. And that sort of time I had unfortunately just missed out. Just it wasn't the right time. And then sort of I really used that sort of thing to sort of fuel me to actually take the team over the line. I mean, I mentioned it just a little bit ago, is like just getting really, really competitive because HEC is also a very, very big rival of VCC in The Hague. It's the Hague Derby. And just sort of fueling myself for that. I knew I had the game to score 100 on that sort of wickets against that sort of team because I'd scored some runs with them against him in the actual season. It was, yeah, just for me, just getting really competitive with myself. Um, and just sort of going out there and just doing sort of the best I could. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but that it just really worked for me in that sort of time.
What's interesting, you mentioned that you had the game to be able to score a century on that pitch. I think at the core of it, that's natural self belief that you do have. So I wanted to ask, is this self belief something that you've always had as a youngster, or is it something that you developed over time when you got older?
I think chatting to guys like Tom and our head coaches and Scotty and Max has really sort of helped me with that because to be honest, I didn't have that when I was at school. I was quite quiet and shy. But yeah, I think chatting to those guys and just sort of learning about my game more as I got older and a little bit more experienced, sort of playing my game and knowing what sort of works for me, that really helped me sort of instill that self-belief. Is like, okay, cool, I can do this. I can hit this shot there. I can hit this bowler. I can take him down this way. This would be successful on this sort of wicket sort of thing because it was our home ground and we sort of knew how the wicket played and what the outfit was like. We knew we were going to have big boundaries, so we are going to have to run really hard. There were easy twos around the field, so yeah, it wasn't a big six hitting ground and all that. So yeah, I think I only really sort of developed that as I got into the or as I got to the Netherlands.
And as well, talking about like very memorable innings in your T20 career. So you mentioned also before I get into that, the innings that I just mentioned, you said that it was in the cusp of the 2023 World Cup selection. Is that correct? So what happened after that innings? Did you get recognized by the Netherlands selectors, and did you get picked? And what was that journey like into the national team?
So I hadn't. So I missed out on the 2023 World Cup squad, which was sort of I feel at looking back on it now as sort of a blessing in disguise, if I put it that way. Obviously, there was a lot of disappointment there. I really wanted to go to a World Cup in India, play 50 over cricket for the Netherlands, for my country, and sort of after that time, sort of missed out and went back home to South Africa and worked with guys at the Gary Kirsten Academy, where we sort of training at the moment. And that time was just a really big self-reflection time for me. Um, I sort of used the disappointment and sort of realized, okay, cool. Yes, it would have been nice to go, but I don't think my time was right then. I don't think I would have been fully ready to go and play full on international cricket at a World Cup just then. I still had a lot of things to learn, I felt. And yeah, as I said, took the time to go back home to the academy, worked with the coaches really, really hard, worked on my game, developed what I needed to develop. Um, and sort of got the opportunity, really, really fortunate enough to go make my debut in Nepal early next year, early the following year in 2024, I think in February, to go play there in a tri series. And sort of that was a time where everything sort of clicked for me. Is like I knew my time was ready then because I'd then put in all the work that needed to be done. And yeah, everything just led on from from then, I remember thinking, knowing and telling myself, like, if I get this opportunity in this series, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I don't want to go there undercooked because then I start sort of second guessing myself and I start sort of clutching at straws. But yeah, that prep period before that series was really good and sort of set me up for what I was going to face.
I want to ask two questions based on that. So you mentioned the Gary Kirsten Academy. It's really interesting because I have a hunch that a lot of Netherlands players go and train there as well. Because I swear another guest that I had, a Netherlands player, said that they go to the. I think it was Shariz Ahmed. I can't remember actually, but
Yes.
is that like a pipeline where a lot of the players go and train there? And if so, like what sort of specific things do you work on from your batting front when you're at the academy?
Yeah, so we quite lucky enough where Gary's actually been involved in a bit of Dutch cricket, and our head coach Ryan Cook and our bowling coach Ryan Van Niekerk is involved with the academy. So we've got really good ties with them, so we're all able to go there and train. And it's an amazing facility with some really, really good coaches. But we basically are not given full reign to work on what we want to work on, but and if the coaches see something, they'll mention it. But so the coaches there, I have a really good relationship with them because I've played club cricket with them. I've worked with them since I was at school, sort of thing, and they know me quite well. So they'll work on a lot of not necessarily technical stuff, but sort of just techniques or methods to help me feel comfortable and sort of confident. Whatever it needs to make me feel confident, because I feel like if I'm confident in my batting, I know that I'll be in good stead. And yeah, it's just also for me just having like a not a mate, but just yeah, like a mate to train with because our relationships are really, really good, but they're also honest. So there can be some good tough love there if I really aren't if I'm not where I need to be. So that's really, really, really helped me.
So, in terms of, you mentioned your debut, I think it was the 2024 Tri Series in Nepal. Explain to us the phone call that you got when you were selected, how it felt, like your emotions, and I guess the preparation, the lead up to that Tri Series.
Yeah, I remember Ryan Cook sitting me down and saying, Mikey, I think you have a really good chance here. You've done everything right, everything that you could have, and you're in a really, really good space to go and sort of do well over there. And yeah, I think in the past I would have sort of frozen that situation. I think having that sort of chat, but I just remember feeling very sort of just not relieved, but just happy, like proud that everything I've done has sort of worked and clicked and helped me get to this opportunity. And yeah, after that phone call, everything just became sort of free in my prep. Like, okay, Michael, you're going. This is what you're going to do. Or it became clear. It became really clear. Like these are the bowlers you're going to face. This is how you're going to prep. You're going to prep to face these sort of bowlers in these sort of conditions. And yeah, it just became more clear and sort of yeah, still puts a smile on my face whenever I think about that. Yeah.
And what sort of conditions were you prepping for in Nepal, and what did you work on in your game to make those adjustments?
Mm. Like we okay, yeah, this was our first time, or my first time, obviously going to Nepal. And what I was told is that the wickets were actually going to be obviously very spin conducive, but it was going to be the first time I would have played on a wicket with literally no grass on. Like I remember looking at one of the wickets when we got there, and you would literally need sunglasses because of the sun just glaring down on it with like sort of just bright, almost brown, but like a light skin color with no grass, and the sun would just glare on it. So yeah, that was the first time I learned like hot and cold wickets and how cold wickets would react compared to the warm wickets because it got really cold in the morning and the wickets would hold, spin, and if you got put into bat early morning in Nepal in a 50 over game, like you would do well to get to 200. But if you bat in the afternoon, you would get to probably 280, 300 quite easily. So yeah, trying to put ourselves into that sort of mindset. If we get put in early morning into bat as an opening batter, what sort of things help us the best get to that 250 total, which we think we could defend. So yeah, it's tough to sort of replicate those sort of conditions in Cape Town. We would yeah put ourselves on pretty tricky wickets to sort of see how our games would be conducive to it and sort of make adjustments from there.
Speaking of Captain Scott Edwards as well, I know that he's pretty good with like playing spin, playing sweeps, and all that. Has that sort of influenced you in a way when it comes to playing in spin conditions in particular?
Yeah, no, he's an absolutely amazing guy to talk to in that sort of regard. He's got so much knowledge, and you can just see the way he trains. He trains with such a good purpose when he plays spin, and like we're fortunate enough, he's more than happy to help all of us develop our spin game. So yeah, taking bits and pieces of what he says into our games has really helped. And yeah, I know he's been amazing just to watch. Like he's a great specimen to watch play spin because he also gets very nitty and gritty and he loves the fight. And that's what I love. I love watching.
Is there any particular spin bowlers from Netherlands that he has a good matchup against in the nets?
Just I think all the guys try to get the rub of the green over him because he's obviously got such a great caliber against spin. But I have to think Dutty, Aryan Dutt, him and Scotty always have a nice little battle in the nets because Dutty's also probably one of the better off spinners there is around the world at the moment. So whenever those two come up against each other, there's always some good banter, should I say? And I can just see it from the other side of the wicket while I'm batting with him.
Yeah, Iron's very good. It's been a bit underrated. Definitely needs more raps because yeah, it's not it doesn't get the justice he deserves. I reckon in terms of the better very gun off spinners going around in world cricket as well. Fast forward to I know we're talking about spin conditions and Nepal. In the T20 score, you'd actually blasted 135 runs of 62 balls against Namibia, and that's the highest T20 I scored by a Dutch batter, and it came in a 193 run second weekend stand with Cybrand, and Netherlands posted 247 for five, which is the highest T20I total. There's so many records there. I think it was like 10 sixes, and yeah, like one of the best second wicket partnerships as well in T20Is in general. So that's a monster score. So what do you feel you did right that day? What was your process, and how did you approach the game? Considering I suspect it was spin conditions as well. Did you try to put pressure on certain bowlers, or was there a lot of tactical, um, you know, talk before the game that you applied in the actual game?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to tactics, thankfully we had played Namibia in a 50 over series just before that T20 part of the series. So we sort of knew which bowlers we were going to come up against and the sort of conditions because we had played a couple games beforehand. But I mean, I think I've got to credit a lot of a lot of that innings to SR to SR Engelbrecht because him and I have got a very good relationship as well. We played a bit of club cricket at BCC together, but he's a guy that I really admire because he's such a hard cricketer, and I think he'd say to himself he's not the most talented, but he's definitely the most gritty, and he's the most sort of like dedicated in a way. And I remember not getting off to the best of starts. I think I was 20. I had a run of ball 26 in that sort of in my start, and I remember getting a boundary away, and that sort of got everything flowing. And once I felt I was in that flow state, it was very hard to stop me. But then chatting to SR every over or every single ball was very instrumental in keeping me locked in because he would just yeah, I think there's videos of him just going, stay calm, watch the ball, sort of keep your head down. And no, he helped me a lot stay locked in and calm in that situation. And I mean he played his hand absolutely phenomenally as well. I think he also got a literally a 77 at nearly a 200 180 strike rate as well. So yeah, he played his hand really well in supporting me to get to that total.
It's interesting you mentioned the word flow state. because people talk about that a lot, trying to get into the flow state, and it's easier said than done, obviously. So, for yourself, how often do you feel like you are in that flow state? And if you aren't in that flow state, what are you trying to do in order to help yourself to get into that flow state?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good question. I mean, I always feel in my flow state when I'm like not thinking. I mean, it's a weird thing to say. It's just I'm not thinking, my body's reacting, and sort of any ball that bowler bowls to me, I have an answer. But generally, when I'm not in the flow state, for me is like slowing the game down. I mean, I like doing a lot of gardening on the wickets and just tapping down spots and stuff and just taking my own time to sort of get back into the game, chatting to my partner. Maxi's very good at that. He knows he can sort of, because we've batted quite a lot together, he knows when I'm a little bit more antsy and a little bit more sort of panicky. He'll come up to me and say, Mikey, don't worry, everything's fine. Don't worry, just watch the next ball, sort of thing. Because I know if I can sort of hit one shot could get me into a flow state. If I hit something out the middle, or if I can get something away, that would get me through.
Circling back to Nepal and that series as well, it's interesting because right now Nepal have defeated West Indies twice actually in the very recent past. So it goes to show how talented they are, coming up world cricket in a short amount of time, and how difficult they are, especially in their own conditions. And for you to be able to score that mammoth score in conditions in Nepal against Namibia goes to show the amount of effort or amount of class or amount of ability that's required to be able to do that. And so, in terms of also going back to 2025 Scotland T20 Tri Series, you'd actually scored a 90 against Scotland and an 86 against Nepal as well in Glasgow. So, uh, out of curiosity, how are the conditions like in Glasgow? It's been many different conditions have been playing in. So, a lot of adjustments I'm sure have to be made. So, in Scotland specifically, what things did you prepare for in preparation for that series, and how did you feel like you had to make those adjustments into your game?
Yeah, so I actually found the conditions to actually be very similar to our Netherlands conditions back at home in my at VCC where I play cricket. But I remember vividly sort of training a lot of skid. I knew it probably wouldn't be conducive to a lot of turn, um, especially with the spinners. And yeah, I remember trying to go on some sort of not like a wetter astro surface to sort of face some skid on, because I knew maybe the spinners wouldn't really go like turn and bounce. It would just be sort of trying to negate that sort of skid straight at the stumps, not going across it. But yeah, also one thing that really stood out to me in Scotland was the wind. The wind played a massive role, especially in those T20s where you could attack one side, but you literally couldn't touch the other side. You couldn't get close to it. So it was then adapting in that sort of situation, because we didn't really prepare for that. But it was adapting in that situation to see, okay, I can access the short side now, and sort of, if we're in a run chase or if we're setting a total, calculate which area or which side we're going to take the risk, or which bowler we're going to take the risk against. I mean, if we're hitting to a long side, we weren't probably going to try hit the most sixes. We were going to try hit it hard on the ground for maybe fours and twos and minimize dot balls. But if we were hitting to the shorter side with the wind, we were trying to hit as many sixes as we could, for example.
I think that's a really interesting topic because many players talk about making those adjustments. So, in the case you mentioned with the wind, and therefore the wind, if it's blowing against you in a certain direction, to hit it hard along the ground for singles and doubles, etc. But then if there's a wind blowing with you on the shorter side, then you go for the big shots. Tactically, obviously, very smart and strategic. In saying that, though, I guess what can happen, and maybe many questions can happen, is that uh, in the case of if you're hitting it towards cow corner, but the wind is blowing against you, and someone's main shot is that, right? So it's like mentally, it sort of messes them up a little bit. It's like, oh, the wind is blowing against me in the best shot. So, for example, for me, giving away my secret, I only got one shot, which is down the ground when I bat. So, like, what can happen is that if the wind is blowing against you, then mentally I'm already like, snap, what can I do in this situation? Because that's my main shot. And then I have to like adjust my game, and that can mess with your mental game in some sense as well. I guess it's obviously made easier if a player's 360, right? 360 degrees, but practically speaking, for many players, it's not the case. So how do you feel that you have to make a trade off when it comes to playing your best shot versus um, thinking about what needs to be done, and that might mess with your head position, for example, because you're thinking too many things and not playing your we talked about flow state. It might actually get in the way of your flow state because now you're thinking about different shots that you might not be accustomed to because of the wind. Does that make sense? So just
Yes,
curious,
no, no,
how do
I
you
got
approach
you.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sort of the same where I really like a pickup pull, and some of the times I'll just react to it straight away because it's just instinct, and that might be to a longer boundary or into the wind. But sort of if it's your go-to shot, you just got to back it. I think you've got to like it's so nice in our sort of setup that everyone knows each other's games so well. And say if Scott goes out sweeping, no one's going to have a go at him at all because that's his go-to shot. And he's so good at it. 9 times out of 10, we know he's going to score boundary or score off it. Where if I see my matchup and I go out hitting my pickup pull and hit it down deep square's throat, no one's going to really have a go at that because I sort of know most of the time it's going to work out. So with you saying that, it's like I know it's really tough with the conditions because the conditions might not be conducive for that shot. But then it's like, yeah, it's your go-to shot. I mean, yeah. Um, I for me, my at this sort of time, I would back myself to just hit my go-to. And but that obviously might not be every single ball. I mean, some balls might be like short and wide, so it's quite tough to hit the ball down the ground. So, I mean, if the ball presents itself, I would back my go-to shot. But if the ball doesn't present itself, then I would sort of adjust my game plan to try access other areas of the ground.
Yeah, fair enough. It just comes down to adjustment at the end of the day and playing to the situation as well. I know that the series I mentioned was 2025, but before then as well, you'd played the T20 World Cup in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, in America. And in one of the warm up games, actually, you'd scored 55 of 28 balls against Sri Lanka. So I wanted to ask, before that World Cup started, what was the preparation like? Because a lot of people talked about that World Cup being very different because of the pitches. In New York, for example, it was very difficult to play on. It was different and unique. And in saying that, I'm just curious what would have been the preparation in the lead up to that World Cup, because I suspect many people wouldn't know how the pitches would play out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, actually, it's funny you say this. So obviously, no one really sort of have known how New York was going to play, so it's really tough to actually do preparation on it because there would have been no pass scores, there would have been no sort of analysis on what the wicket would be like. We knew it was going to be drop-in wickets. Um, so I mean, your prep for that sort of game, like we knew we were only playing one game there instead of two or three, was not neglected, but we wanted to just go into that game as confident as we could. Um, so yeah, and then try and adjust in the situation, which was pretty tough to say. But yeah, I mean, the prep for that World Cup was pretty intense. I think we had a series just before that. We had a tri series against Scotland and Ireland in the Netherlands, and we had a couple Pro Series games, which is our sort of domestic warm up games. And we had a lot of camps, we had a lot of sessions, and yeah, I remember going through quite a nice hot streak just before that World Cup, thankfully leading on from the Nepal series, and just being confident was my sort of motto, and trying to not leave any stone unturned, which is what I've mentioned in the past. Is like I don't want to be going to that tournament knowing I'm a bit undercooked and haven't done the correct preparation. So I wanted to know I was going there and I'd done everything I could to perform.
That score against Sri Lanka in that warm up game, Sri Lanka had many gun bowlers. So Patirana, Hasaranga, Theekshana. Pretty sure they were in that match as well. So, was there very specific trainings and preparations you did before those World Cup games, or was that World Cup game sort of treated as a warm up game because they're still high quality players, obviously? So, I suspect that a level of preparation does go into it because we don't know how World Cups turn out. You might have to play them again, so it's a good opportunity to experience playing those type of bowlers. So what was that innings like in particular? What did you feel you did right? And in terms of preparation, were you specifically preparing to bat a certain way to certain balls? Because, for example, Patarana is very unorthodox. Hasranga is one of the world's best leggies as well. Dishan is kind
Mhm.
of a unique spinner as well. So there's a lot happening there. So how did you prepare for all of that?
Yeah, no, I was actually, I'll say it now, but Hasaranga and Tikshana didn't actually bowl, so I don't know what sort of difference that might have made, but yeah, I'll still claim the still claim it. But yeah, I think Sri Lanka was just being a bit sneaky in that regard. They didn't want us because we were going to face them in the group stage, so I don't think they wanted to bowl Hasaranga or Tikshana. But yeah, um, I just remember feeling really really nervous in that sort of game because that was my first actual game against a full test nation. Because before that, actually no, I lied. We played Ireland before, but that was my first proper game against probably some really high end sort of potential to win a World Cup sort of team. And yeah, I think just leading into that game, it was taken as a warm up because we did want to experiment with a few things, with a few combinations and stuff. But yeah, I think just having a lot of backing and support from the coaching staff and the teammates in saying that you've done the work now to get here, just go express yourself. If it doesn't come off, learn from it and sort of take what you can out of it. And yeah, thankfully I'd got a few boundaries away early and got into that flow state pretty soon. And everything just sort of clicked that game. And I remember walking off retired 55 and again I just walked off with a big grin on my face. I was very, very proud that sort of what process I'd followed had worked, and this could potentially work in the games leading up.
I was looking at the score now, scorecard now. So you also face Thushara and Madhushanka, which are a bit of an unorthodox action, like slingy as well. So was there any specific cues that you had to do? Because an orthodox bowler, you're sort of looking at from the top of his hand, whereas this slingy action is from the side. I know that once I was listening to an interview, I think it was Dinesh Karthik or one of the Indian ex-Indian players that have retired now, they're saying that when they were playing Malinga, for example, they were actually looking at the umpire's like collar, for example, because that's what happened to be the release point, which made it a little easier to pick up on that cue. But did you have anything in particular, or are you just kind of trying to treat it as any other sort of pace bowler as well?
To be honest, I was just trying to watch the ball as closely as possibly, and I knew if I was in a position that I thought was strong, I was able to sort of negotiate every ball that they could bowl at me. And for me, it was just trying to also not let them sort of settle because I know they were also going to treat it as a warm up, and they were just trying to use it to get overs under their belt. And I knew if I could just be proactive in the crease and sort of try put them off and get myself into those strong Ston and Salon positions, I would be okay.
And you won that game actually by 20 runs. So did that bring a lot of confidence for the team? I can assume, in World Cup game against a strong team, winning it by 20 runs would do a whole world of confidence.
Yeah, I know definitely that did help the team quite a lot. But obviously, we knew that this wasn't going to obviously depict what was going to happen if we play them in the group stage game. A lot could still change, conditions, everything. Some of the guys might have just had a bad day, sort of thing. So yeah, we still try to, well, we had to stay very, very grounded and just sort of take it as it came. We obviously took confidence from it, but we wanted to again build on what we needed to build on to hopefully put out a stronger performance if we played them in the group stage game.
Throughout that World Cup, I'm sure you would have linked up with many World Cup players from other teams. Was there any standout memory that you have where you saw or got an opportunity to meet a very good player and happened to take lessons from them or any advice from them?
Um, yeah, I think we were very fortunate enough to share hotels with the South African team in New York. We we were going to play them in New York, but obviously we have quite a lot of South African ties within the Dutch side with our head coaches and our assistant coaches, and probably our whole coaching staff is South African. So they knew sort of the South African boys quite well. And sort of just to be able to share like a breakfast table with some of those guys like David Miller, Heinrich Klaas and Aiden Markram, Quinton de Kock even, like just to sort of have a seat with them and see how they carry themselves on the field when we played against them and off the field when we were in the hotel with them was just really, really cool to see like these are what the big dogs are sort of doing. This is their process and everything.
And in T20 cricket, nowadays so many bowlers bowl so many variations, right? So you have the slower balls or cross seam deliveries. How do you adjust as a batsman, because it can be difficult to, you're playing 140 kilometer an hour bowl and then suddenly he's bowling 115, 110 slower ball deliveries, or maybe even slower than that. So do you have any sort of specific adjustment that you make that allows you to pick up those slower balls, especially in the death overs where it can be a bit difficult to get on top of, and especially in perhaps in some of the conditions you played in America as well, where it's a bit harder to score as well.
Yeah, it's funny you've mentioned it because this is literally exactly what I'm working on as my prep at the moment for the next few for the next month or few weeks. So yeah, I mean what I've worked with at the moment is obviously when you're facing 140 clicks and then when you're going down to 100 k's an hour, it's a massive, massive difference. And at the moment, I'm in the sort of stage where I don't want to give much away, where sort of the pace is fine if I'm facing 140 k's, but when it drops down, I was like, I'm having to sort of adjust and sort of dink it and having to get a one. But my sort of thing now is that I'm trying to sort of be able to hit that pace on pace ball for 4-6 and that off pace ball for 4-6, especially in the middle overs in death. And for me now, it's like just trying to get into just a strong, stable position where I'm not sort of deterred about anything because yeah, I do find it quite tough is like, especially when the guys got such a big sort of pace difference, is that you can't really set up for the on pace ball, but then you struggle adjusting to the off pace ball. But when you set up for the off pace ball and the ball on pace ball, it's quite tough to adjust with that big difference. So I think everyone's different, and I'm still sort of exploring that sort of area, is just finding a position and sort of staying as still as you can to be able to attack that slow ball and on pace ball.
In when it comes to batting as an opening batsman, especially in the limited overs format, how do you and your team management define success for you in the first 6 overs, and what is the feedback loop like when the first plan misses?
Yeah, so we have a few KPIs, and the one KPI that really stands out to me, especially in the first 6 overs, is the dot ball to boundary ratio. So we always go on two dot balls to one boundary, 2-1. So I mean, I find this really, really helpful for me because if we go get off to a flyer and we've scored 10 boundaries, like we allow 20 dot balls, sort of thing. But if we don't get off to a flyer and we have maybe one boundary in the first 6 overs, we only allow two dot balls. That means obviously we're scoring in on a high majority of the balls, getting singles or getting twos. But that for me, once I've ticked that KPI, that generally determines if we've done pretty well or not.
And can it be stressful trying to hit these KPIs? I just assume that it could play in the mind of batsmen because it might come across, or it might come in the way of what you mentioned earlier in the episode about simplicity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not really like a pressure thing. It's more just indicators and sort of like helpful points. I think if I've got that in my head, it becomes actually a bit more clear for me of what I need to do. I mean, I always also mention is like if I'm trying to chase 230, I find that easier because I sort of know how I need to play. I know I need to be more intense, sort of thing. So having that sort of KPI does make it a lot more clear for me and gives me more actually simpleness on how I need to play and how I need to go about it.
In the recent past, you had played in the ICC T20 World Cup Europe regional competition, also the final as well. So, what preparation went into that competition, and how did it feel to win the final so convincingly and to make the World Cup?
Yeah, thankfully that tournament was held in our home ground, so we knew what wickets we were going to play on, and we knew we were going to play on the hybrid wickets. So we tried to train as much as we could on hybrid wickets just to get a gauge of what the seamers would do on those sort of wickets, what the spinners would do. We did a lot of fielding on the ground just to get used to dimensions in the outfield and everything, which really, really helped us. But the feeling when we got to the final was, geez, I don't think I had been more nervous, to be honest. It kind of felt like we were like playing for our jobs in a way, like because I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't made that World Cup. But yeah, just once we won that game, it just the feeling of relief and the celebrations that followed was just so nice. Like yeah, to spend that night with your teammates who you had worked so hard with for the weeks up and coming. We all had the same common goal. I mean, like we got these cool rings made for the Dutch crickets, which is really nice. Just to spend those sort of times together, and yeah, it's something that will always stick with me throughout my whole career, and it'll be something to tell my kids and grandkids. So yeah, it'll be like a
That's amazing. And you mentioned something interesting when it comes to being nervous on the final. How do you go about dealing with your nervousness? And do you have any strategies or mental strategies that you utilize to help you when you are nervous?
yeah. So I'm a guy who loves talking about it. I love talking about the game, and if I can talk about it, it's sort of that that makes me feel a lot better already. And as I said before, our team is such a great sort of safe space, and you can be so vulnerable if you want to, and everyone will sort of back you. And I mean, for me, just to sort of like tell someone, "Hey, Maxi, I'm feeling quite nervous here. She's this is a big game, sort of thing." And maybe he would tell me, Mikey, actually, I'm nervous as well. Let's just put our head down and do it together. Don't worry, whatever happens, we'll be fine, sort of thing. Or he'll come up with some amazing advice, which he sometimes generally does. Like, don't worry, Mike, just back yourself. You'll be all good. I'm here for you, sort of thing. Um, yeah, that's what's generally helped me, especially when I get nervous, is just to communicate that and just not keep it suppressed. Just let the guys know around me that, yeah, guys, I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little bit nervous here. You might need to help me a little bit, and literally I've never had a bad sort of a bad experience with that.
That's amazing. It's amazing to know that you have such a open group like that, and that you can openly communicate how you truly feel. That will, I'm sure, help and go a long way. And that's a reminder for, I think, all club teams in all levels to have that openness in the changing room and amongst the teammates, so they can share in the experience and feel validated in a way as well, and not shun feeling, so that you can become closer with your teammates as a result, and also get them addressed, and being open about it, as opposed to what you mentioned is suppressing them, which can sometimes, I mean, for the most case, can be detrimental if you kind of suppress them to the point where you don't feel comfortable in sharing that nervousness. I wanted to also ask about, because a lot of your best scores have been in T20s, and for example, when we talked about your score against other teams, I think one of the innings, your best innings, you hit 10 sixes, for example. So clearly, there's an element of I'm sure that you take your power game very seriously. So what's your approach when it comes to power hitting? Do you do any specific drills or trainings or anything you work on very from a very technical perspective that facilitates or helps you to enhance your power hitting game?
Um, yeah, no, I keep saying it, but like, thankfully, I've been a guy who's always been a little bit stronger and been able to hit those sixes. But it's always been a thing of mine to try hit them as more consistently. And I've found ever since I've worked on my sort of swing. I mean, I used to be a very one-dimensional sort of six-hitter, slog to cow or slog over mid, like deep square leg, and sort of not be able to access the offside. But as soon as I would so yeah, as soon as I found out like what sort of position worked for me, which was back and across, keep my weight sort of back, but sort of keep my head forward, sort of thing, and hit from a strong base and hit through the line of the ball, wherever the ball, whichever line came down at me, that helped me a lot instead of swinging across the line the whole time. And yeah, facing the bowling machine a lot, facing some overarm throws, and just sort of refining that bat swing and being able to adjust to an on-pace ball and off-pace ball is has been very, very helpful.
What's interesting, you mentioned, for example, back and across and little tweaks. So I'm sure there was a process you had to go through, like a lot of trial and error, for example, to get to that position where you feel you're comfortable in your game. So how did that process look like? Was like how were you doing that trial and error? Like were you, for example, working in the nets and you've just felt that it didn't feel right, and then maybe you tried it in the game and it didn't feel right, and then you just kind of discard it at the next training session and try something else? So, and or did you have like coaches around you that also pointed you in the right direction? So how did that process look like? Because a lot of people, I'm sure many cricketers are in that process of trying to figure out what's good for them. Like I know for me, for example, I got some coaching from Oliver Peake, who's under 19 captain in Melbourne, and he basically looked at me and said like, you don't need a trigger, a front foot trigger, for example, because that's what I had, whereas I can stand still, because I told him like I'm not as strong on the back foot, but then that allowed me to access the back foot. So that's kind of my personal journey, and I'm sure for everyone else it looks different. So how did that look for you?
Yeah, for me, as you said, a lot of trial and error where I would go into the nets and trial running down at the bowler or trial giving myself room so I could free my arms and sort of sieving out all that information and finding out one sort of thing that I could hit the most consistently from. Because sort of Coach Ryan Cook has been really, really good with that. Is like when you're trying a new thing, is like if you face 20 balls of it at a time in at a session, it's like, and you do that for a month, you are gonna always upskill in that, but you're never gonna lose what you had. So if you do those drills 20 balls at a time for a month at the end of every session, you never you yeah, you're never gonna lose what you had, but you're gonna have obviously upskill on that sort of thing. So if you do decide to discard it, you won't become a worse player. You actually might become a better player because you've upskilled still on that sort of thing, which you might actually need one sort of game. But I don't know if that makes sense. But yes, I've obviously went through a lot of trial and error of trying to find different things, and then got to that sort of back and across trigger only when power hitting, and that sort of helped me get into positions where I was hitting the ball a lot cleaner and a lot more effectively, and be able to access a lot more areas of the ground.
Are there any specific gym work you also did that helped you with your power game?
Yeah, a lot of so our fitness trainer is a really, really good guy, Dean Munsami, big shout out. He's got us doing a lot of rotational work. And we found, especially looking at like golfers and stuff, and with me playing a bit of golf as well, is that a lot of power actually comes from our legs and our lower body and getting our hips snap through the ball or through the shot. And a lot of power doesn't actually really come from our upper body. So it was getting sort of that timing right with the hip snap through the ball and getting our arms to whip through. That's what really helped us hit the ball a little bit harder.
And when it comes to batting drills as well to help with your power hitting, what do you focus on in the nets? Is it just purely facing a bowler? I know you mentioned bowling machine, for example, but are there any other, like people talk about, I don't know, underarm throws, playing? Like I've seen a video of, I think it was the number three bat. I think it was for England, name's Ollie Pope. Ollie Pope, I think.
Okay.
He was doing a drill where his head is and his body is still, he can't move his front foot, but he has to still play at the ball as late as possible. So I don't know if you do specific drills like that as well, because people talk about having a still head as much as possible or playing the ball as late as possible. So are there any drills that you do specifically in order to help you with that power game side of things?
Yeah, I think especially when I'm working on a new skill, I like to start very, very basic with those underarms, just to sort of refine the swing and sort of get used to sort of getting into the same position the whole time. So I will start off with underarms and try and replicate the same feeling the whole time. If something felt good, I want to feel that all the time. But then as you progress, is like I gotta think that I'm not gonna face slots every single game. I'm gonna have to learn to hit sixes off different types of balls. So I might go then from underarms to overarm, but then only facing slots. And then once I've developed from that, is in trying to get into the same position, but then access different areas of the ground with different balls. So yeah.
And in terms of, I know that like watching your highlights, you love playing the short ball and the pull shot, and you mentioned that on the podcast as well. So a lot of the common issues that people might have as a batsman is playing the short ball. So what do you feel you do right? I know maybe the trigger you've already talked about, but what else do you feel that you do right that allows you to play the short ball, especially at a high pace? Like when it's above 140 clicks, it can be difficult for many players to be, on the back foot, being able to play the short ball. What do you feel you do right with your batting style that allows you to be effective on the short ball?
Um, a lot of it's come from being exposed to it a little bit earlier on. I mean, as we've said before, growing up in South Africa, we've faced a lot of quick bowling, but yeah, I think I I have been hit as a lot of times. So I have like you can learn through obviously getting hit. So yeah, I mean, it's just come to be honest. I'll be honest, it's probably just come a bit more naturally to me. I know it's probably it's tough to say, but I think it's just playing the short ball's just come a little bit more naturally to me. And to be honest, I will still get beaten by a very good short ball. I mean, really, really good fast bowlers still get a ping in their pocket at the end of the end of the month because that's what they train. And yeah, they might still beat me with a short ball. They might still beat me with a really good ball. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's like just especially playing the short ball is just trying to put that fear of getting hit aside. And I know that's really, really hard to say. You just got to back your ability. And sort of I found playing those quicker short balls is like the smaller movement possible, the better. Because if I'm moving a lot and I'm facing really, really quick bowling, something small in my movement needs to go wrong and I'm in all sorts of trouble. But if I keep my movements quite small, sharp, and precise, then I find that I've got a lot more time to face quicker bowling.
You've been so generous with your time. I'll ask just a few questions before we wrap up the show. In regards to the best advice you've received that's really changed your batting, who gave you the best advice? What was it? And in what way did it help you?
Yeah, I mean, as I said in this whole podcast before, I mean, I've been a guy who likes to think a lot, and sort of the best advice I got given when I was really, really young, um, growing up yeah, in my development sort of stages is the acronym KISS is keep it simple, stupid. That was my sort of thing. Is since ever since I've kept my batting as simple as I could, that's what's helped me stay as clear as possible. And just for me personally, when I'm clear, I'm batting at my best.
And who's the best batsman you have seen, like you've played against, that really amazed you in terms of how good they were?
That I've played against or just watched.
Played
Oh,
against or even played with as a teammate as well?
jeez, there's so many. Um, but I think sort of a guy that I watched and thought this guy's on his day is not going to go out. I think it's going to be Scotty because when Scotty's in his smudge mode, we say he's a machine. So yeah, I'd like to say Scott Edwards.
Smudgy in the sense of like referring to Steve Smith, his nickname,
Yes,
Smudge
yeah.
Mode. Okay.
So yeah, he gets into this sort of mental frame when he's batting and when he's switched on. We call it smudge mode because he's got these like weird tendencies. And yeah, you just can't speak to him. You know he's switched on, and we just say, "Ah, he's in smudge mode. Let's sit down and get the popcorn and watch him, boys."
That's amazing. I never heard that term. I might use that for one of my friends as
Yeah.
well. In regards to the most challenging bowler you faced, who would that be? One pacer and one spinner.
Yeah, I think obviously conditions have depicted that. But I remember being in all sorts. It was my first ever like Dutch sort of. I got chosen in the qualifiers in Zimbabwe in 2023, and I played a warm up game against Scotland, and I faced Chris Sol, and that was again my first sort of taste of international cricket in Pretoria. And Pretoria is really well known for their pace and bounce. And I faced it at like a 9:30 start. I just remember balls like I'm going in the front foot and balls are going past my shoulder, and I'm like, oh my word, I don't know what to do here. Um, so that was probably one of the toughest spells I'd faced from a bowler, Chris Sol. I don't think he's playing anymore. Yeah. And then spin wise, yeah, I think it's going to be Teak Shiner in that World Cup, in the 2024 World Cup. He bowled a really good spell at me and actually ended up getting me out at the end of the day.
With the pacer, was it Chris Saul? You said going through that situation. How did you combat that? Like, how did you feel like you had to switch on in that moment in order to get the best out of yourself? Because I mean, when I've spoken to players as well, it's not just high level players, but I mean, of course, like lower league players. There's always that we share one common thing, where is that they've all had this snap, like there's this bowler, getting so much nip and bounce and swing. So, what do you do in that situation from a mental perspective to help you get through those
Mm.
situations? Because there can be a lot of self doubt. Because a lot of people succumb to the situation and be like, "I'm not good enough for this. Like, I need to, go and train way harder." But you're in the game, so you're already in the thick of it. So, how do you go through that? How do you combat that situation?
Yeah, so I went back to a process that really resonated with me personally. I've had a lot of success from it. It might not work for everyone, but for me, I always love getting to a battle and getting really competitive with myself and sort of what's coming down at me. Like as I mentioned before, like I'm going to play the best forward defense of my life right now, and just get really sort of down and dirty. And then back to my acronym is keep it simple, stupid, KISS.
Amazing. And last question I'll ask on the podcast is, what's been your most favorite international innings? I mean, there's one, your century against Namibia, which obviously is, catches the eye going through your statistics and scores. But apart from that one, was there any other standout innings that you feel you've had?
I think it was the second ODI of my career. Came off a duck with my with my debut, and then I scored a 50 in my second game, 57, I think, of 81 balls against Namibia as well. And that for me was a big. I was really proud of that because that was a big sort of check off my list. I just really wanted to get a 50 out of the way, and to do that in Nepal as well in really tough conditions. That for me was actually one of my sort of favorite innings to look back on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I appreciate your time on the podcast. It shared a lot of gems, a lot of stories, and the viewers and listeners definitely will take a lot from everything you shared today. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I don't know if you had any final words you wanted to share before we wrap up the show.
No, all good. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. The honors mine having you on the show and be able to pick your brains. And there's so much to learn, and everyone's so excited. Young cricketer coming up, already big performances in international cricket, and there's a long career ahead. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'll wrap it up there. So from our listeners, we wish you all the best. If you wanted to check us out on our social medias, check us out on Instagram, TikTok. We're also on YouTube where we post our full videos, and also on Spotify and iTunes. So you can check us out on Apple Podcasts as well. So from our special guest, Michael, we wish you all the best. This is Tandem signing off. Thank you very much. Take care.